Alors, bonjour tout le monde.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this second webinar today. For those of you who weren't with us this morning, it's important to note that this webinar will be interpreted simultaneously into English. And so I am going to address our Anglophone friends in English just once at the beginning.
For those that were not with us this morning, please note that the whole webinar will be in French, but simultaneously translated into English. To activate functionality on your computer, you need to click on the globe-shaped icon and then on the language of your choice, which should be English. For those who have a smartphone or a tablet, you must first click on More and then on Language Interpretation and then on the language of your choice. So thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, and I hope this webinar will be interesting for you. Alors, j'aimerais, juste pour m'assurer, plusieurs
So,
d'entre
to make sure, well, a number of you were there this morning, but a few of you weren't. So I just want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So I would ask all participants to activate the interpretation if you wish to do so by clicking on the globe and choosing the French language. And if you have a smartphone or a tablet, you'll have to click on the little more symbol, the 3 dots, and then you choose language interpretation and the language of your choice. If you need technical assistance during the event, you can click on and Naomi Mann. She will answer your questions of a technical nature. So there you have it. I'll introduce myself. My name is Dominique Monchamp. I will be your moderator this afternoon. I am the senior advisor for the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation and Aqua Forum. It's important that you know that this event was organized by the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation and Aqua Forum. This afternoon, we will be dealing with the role of the Canada Water Agency and raising awareness of water issues among Canadians. We will try to highlight issues that are less known by Canadians and the programs and awareness campaigns around water issues that have been conducted by various organizations in Quebec. And I will moderate an interview with a marketing expert, and he will explain to you the success, the key items you need for a successful marketing campaign. Then after all of those presentations, I'm going to ask questions of our guest speakers, and I'll try to summarize your questions. I'd encourage you to write them down in the Q&A section that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. I'll try to summarize those questions as best as I can, and then ask them of the correct panelist. You can write your questions throughout the event. They will be noted down. I invite all panelists who are not active to close their microphones and cameras, and of course to turn on your microphones and cameras when it's your turn to speak. So there you go, that's it for the technical aspect of this webinar. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our first guest speaker, Sonia Bemel. She is President and CEO and co-founder of Watershed Monitoring and President and co-founder of Watershed Monitoring Europe. And she's an associate professor at Laval University, and she will share with us some of the most important water-related issues unknown to Canadians. So, Ms. Bemel, over to you.
Oui, bonjour. Merci beaucoup pour
Hello, And thank you for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'd like to start today by a quote from the European Commission. I'll read it out to you, and then I'll give you my comments. Water is critical for life. It is a vital resource for humanity, which generates and maintains economic growth and prosperity. It's also at the heart of natural ecosystems and climatic regulation. So what this means is that without quality water and insufficient qualities, we can't have economic growth, we can't have development, nor public health, and there isn't any public safety. So what this means is that if we want to protect water resources, regardless of for which use, that could be for human use or for protecting the environment or for species who live there. So we have to protect it or else our society will fail. In the history of humanity, there have been huge societies that have crumbled because they stopped protecting their water resources. The Mayas, the Romans, and other civilizations. So water resources and their management is not just an environmental issue, which they're often presented as. It's a resource that is essential, and it has to be protected. And that protection must include all actors and stakeholders and all departments of government, whether it's the environment, Department of Environment, health departments, and public safety departments. And economic development is also concerned, the development of resources, the economy, and innovation. They're all affected. And there has to be a price put on water. That is essential if we want to protect it. And for actors at all levels, that could be federal or even local, right down to the local level, for them to all have access to information and financial resources and to take real measures to protect water, that is necessary. Water is at the heart of natural ecosystems, so it's important to keep in mind that we have to protect water resources in order to protect natural ecosystems. If we don't do that, if we only protect it for the benefit of animals and species, well, in fact, it's bigger than that. If our water is generally of good quality, these ecosystems function, and then they even purify that water. They purify the wastewater created by humans. So would it just be for our own benefit? When we talk about climate regulation and the quantity of water available in one area, that will have a direct impact on local climate, regional climate, and world climate. If we change things too quickly, for example, by building dams or modifying wetlands, or by climate change, we're realizing that there will be an effect and a negative cycle that will happen, and this will affect the quantity of water available. It's important to remember that water is a strategic challenge on the local, regional, and international levels. If we look at a few examples in Canada, we are the country with the most fresh water. 56 indigenous reserves still don't have access to drinking water. There are cities like Toledo with over 300,000 residents who didn't have access to water because their water was contaminated and toxic. And this was a huge problem with the water towers in Lake Erie. And so everybody had to be provided with water bottles, bottled water rather. So there's pollution, but there's also advisories to either not drink the water, to boil the water. You'll remember the Walkerton crisis, that was almost 20 years ago. That's because there was not healthy, safe water available. There was not a sufficient approach in place. There was a problem with the water source and the distribution, so there were deaths and many people fell ill. We also have to talk about water quantity. It's important to know that in Canada, currently, the cost of floods could triple by 2030, just in terms of building infrastructure costs. Floods have always had an impact on the quality of water because of all of the pollution that is injected into the water during these events. People are seriously affected by these floods, and so this definitely has an impact on the quality of the water. Internationally now, it's important to understand that we're in a situation where the entire planet has a water access problem, both for quantity and quality. And this is for short, medium, and long term. If we look at our neighbors in the south, there is a water quantity and quality crisis underway. Now, this is a resource that's used by mining companies as well. It's important to remember this. We have a responsibility towards Canada and the entire planet to make sure that water is managed and protected well. It's important to remember that there have already been water wars around the world that are ongoing right now. It is a very strategic resource, and there's a certain value and even monetary value that goes with it. If we look at the issues now, I'm going to go into a little more detail now. These are major issues. This is not an exhaustive list, but it will give you a good idea. Currently in Canada, we have a problem with wastewater management. Often this water sanitation is insufficient. There's industrial water sanitation as well, but also urban sanitation. So this threatens the ecological integrity and the health of humans and other living species, because others depend on the quality of this drinking water. Some people think they can rely on wastewater treatment centers, but that's false. We cannot clean all the water, and there's always some residue that remains. This also leads to the eutrophication of lakes and rivers. We've also got a problem with blue-green algae, and this also creates hypoxia zones in rivers and estuaries. It also pollutes water that is meant for drinking water. Now, this could be runoff water or cleaned water. All of this has an impact on ecological integrity. And in terms of numbers, it's important to remember that there's still about 100 municipalities in the province of Quebec alone that have no wastewater treatment. It goes straight into the river or the waterway. If we look at wastewater with other human activities, runoff from urbanization, for example, the infrastructure is too close to dams and such, and so this has an impact on the ecological integrity. There's also agriculture that I didn't have the time to mention, but mining activities, depending on where you are, there's always an impact of It's our activities that have an impact on the quality and quantity of water available. Now, ecologically, we're talking about fish here. This has an impact on the ecosystem and the auto-purification of our waters. This also impacts of aquatic species that live in bodies of water. And in some places, this is already the case for humans as well. They're affected. This reduces access to drinking water of sufficient quality and quantity. And there are a number of elements involved. There's the impermeability. There's less water that can get in. So there's less water in the water tables. And because of these activities, there's also a risk of erosion and floods. And the saddest example is people who were forced to evacuate their homes in the middle of the pandemic. So there were two catastrophes at the same time. Something that's becoming more and more worrisome in Canada, especially in Quebec, where we're aware of this problem, is the increase in the use of road salt. That has an effect on water in a number of places. Climate change, it has an impact on the distribution of precipitation and the changes in temperature. So it reduces the availability of water in time and space for certain sectors, and it increases the risk of floods. It changes the temperature of water and bodies of water, physical changes, biological and chemical changes related to that. But if I give a very real example, there have been some places where water was lacking, and it was in places where the most water is available. Saint-Antoine-des-Tillets didn't have drinking water, and they had to buy it from Quebec City and get it shipped, trucked over to their town. And there were places where firefighters had to intervene to bring water because people didn't have enough in their individual wells. It was to fill up their pools. Now, is that really a priority? With drinking water, well, sometimes in places where water counters, water meters are not allowed, and that's for a great majority of municipalities in Quebec. Water is not paid for. Access to drinking water in sufficient quality and quantity is already an issue in Canada. And because of this is in part because of a lack of water sanitation, overconsumption of drinking water, climate change, human infrastructure, and ultimately policies. We can't accept in a country that is considered a developed country that there are still 20,000 indigenous peoples who still don't have access to drinking water, that hundreds of fish die when there's an oil spill, hundreds of fish species. So we absolutely need to do something. And we need to do it together. And we have to do it with the necessary financial means. I'm going to present you with my recommendation now for the Canada Water Agency. Often, in questions that we've seen over the last days during consultations, people are fearful and they want to keep their skills, and that's very understandable and justifiable. But there is a model that already exists where skills are upheld and respected, and differences concerning climate zones are respected as well. And there's also different issues, different kinds of bodies of water and ground. So This is the directive framework on water. I recommend that the Canada Water Agency take inspiration from this European directive framework. I'll read you an excerpt from this to illustrate this to you. In 2000, the Directive Framework on Water streamlined European regulation on water management and established a requirement to protect and restore the quality of water and aquatic environments in all of the European Union. Then there was an implementation that was incorporated into the existing structures with financial incentives, and there were also complementary directives to protect against floods and such, so that the whole continuum would be included for addressing problems that arise. And the idea is to protect our water resources. And in my opinion, this is a model that, if adapted to Canada, could work if given the proper financial means. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Sonia. That was an excellent presentation. As you can see, everyone, these issues are very complex. I know that a number of you as participants are already experts, so you are familiar with these issues. But here we're talking about how we could raise awareness among citizens in Quebec and Canada. It's not easy. These issues are complex. There are many of them. And on top of it all, we live in a country with 2 official languages. So the challenges are huge. For the next part of this webinar, we're going to introduce you to panelists who have come up with ways to raise awareness. So you're going to hear about all kinds of awareness programs, awareness campaigns. Each speaker has exactly 4 minutes. There are 8 of them, so 4 minutes for each of them to explain their program or campaign. And they're going to talk to us about the problems they ran into, and they'll have one recommendation for the future water agency. So I'll now give the floor over to Jean-Éric Turcotte, who is the Executive Director of St. Lawrence Strategy and Executive Director of the St. Lawrence Action Fund. He will talk about the St. Lawrence Challenge. Jean-Éric, over to you now. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. I don't know if I'm able to make the changes. Yes. Okay, so the St. Lawrence Challenge is basically a program that's funded by the Community Action chapter of Environment Canada, and the idea is to minimize the impact of plastics and microplastics in the St. Lawrence. This program is based on 2 main pillars, but it's broken down into 4 categories. So yes, we want to raise awareness, and we also want to mobilize. So for raising awareness, these are approaches we take with citizens, and we adapt this to schools. So this is part of the school program in Quebec, municipalities. We've got information sheets and events and conferences that are targeted at municipalities, and on the industry level, especially the ecotourism sector, well, they were particularly interested in this. They're interested in the condition of the St. Lawrence because they see it every day. In terms of mobilization, the 4 major ways to get involved. Well, once people are educated, as we say, and we've raised awareness, then they're ready to mobilize, meaning they're ready to take action. And of course, there are different ways to do this. We have a huge shoreline cleanup initiative, and we do that with the Blue organization and WWF Canada. And sometimes we even have other partners who join us, and they come to clean up a portion of the shoreline, because every time we clean up the shore, this is an improvement. And all of these plastics create many problems. We're also focusing on getting rid of one-time use plastics. We have raising awareness tools that can help companies to commit to getting rid of these single-use plastics. We also have a tool for educating that I mentioned earlier, but we can also adapt this to the municipality level. This will come out soon. It'll allow them to take real commitments, to make real commitments on the ground. And there's also another element that allows citizens to take samples. This is called polymère. And so they will go look at the plastics along the St. Lawrence, and this gets citizens involved. So basically, that explains what the St. Lawrence Challenge is. Now, this leads me to my recommendation. Of course, if you want to know more about the St. Lawrence Challenge, you can go read about it on the website. It's easy to find and very well explained. The success of our approach is that it's through Strategy St. Lawrence, and it's very structured and adapted to each waterfront community. And we have what we call ZIP zones in French, which are the areas of prime concern. And the federal government has a trend. They tend to come up with programs that are for coast to coast, but it's important to know that every region is different and even the culture is different. So we'd like to have better funded programs and better adapted to each region. So if I had a specific recommendation to give, well, a future Canada Water Agency should not take the place of existing organizations that are already experts in their fields, but on the contrary, it should put in place their own program and maybe fund various projects that exist already. So there you have it. That's it. Thank you very much, Jean-Éric. You can now turn off your camera, your video. Now we're going to hand it over to Denise Cloutier. She is the executive director of the Centre d'interprétation de l'eau, the Water Interpretation Center, and she will talk about the awareness programs for young people at her center. So over to you, Denise. You have to turn on your video, Denise. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation and to you, Dominique, for inviting me. I'm going to tell you about my center, CIO. We've been doing this since 2008. We have created a science museum, which is now accredited, and it has a permanent exhibit on rivers. We also have temporary exhibits and over 400 artifacts, which show how technology related to water has evolved over time. We've got something called the River Rally, which basically teaches people about the importance of taking care of our rivers. And it also has a mobile app, and this covers 125 kilometers of territory, and you can cover it over either in your car, by bicycle. Now, we've got 8 scientific workshops in the laboratory in schools, or even virtually now. So these workshops happen by working with water. We help people to transform raw water into drinking water. We've got students in training, and of course they learn about water and health. These young people are absolutely amazed by water and aquatic life. The educational package, known as Fantastico, includes 25 science experiments on water. It's available in French and English for all of Quebec, and soon it will be available virtually as well. Recently, we created a play which teaches kids about water and how to take care of it. We've got conferences, webinars, debates that are for a large audience, the general public, and we also have awareness kiosks.
And we do visits of water stations for schools, colleges, universities, and the general public who are interested in drinking water. So these are our challenges: how to get in touch with as many young people as possible, reach more young people, offer them a stimulating space and a showcase on water, and have time to spend with them. And that's why we're working on a new project, which is a national water museum. Our recommendation for the Canada Water Agency is to invest in sensitizing young people because they are the vectors of change. Also, I'd like to tell you about an experience of our boating awareness campaign for recreational boaters. And first of all, people liked the advertising. They could recognize themselves in that. And then we also had a web campaign where we reached 1.3 million people and 80,000 videos were watched, and we had $8,000 of investment. Then not more. So we did that with geofencing. We made people aware on Google and Facebook, websites and places like there's Rivière des Outaouais, Lac de Montagne, and Mille-Îles. And as you see, the whole panoply of ages was included. So what we recommend to the agency is that when we work, that we should work in something specific. We should invest in low-cost web-based information campaigns to reach a largest audience possible. Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you so much for our speakers. You are really masters of discipline and keeping it on time. Up to now, nobody has gone over, so let's keep up the good work. Okay, so our next is Matt Gill. He is Deputy General Manager and Head of the Technical Sector of Réseau Environnement. He will speak to us today about the drinking water conservation program put forth by Réseau Environnement. So the floor is yours, Mathieu. Thank you, Dominique, and thank you, Aqua Forum and the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation. So I'm going to talk to you today about saving drinking water. And so next slide, please. So before we go there, just a second. Before we go into detail about the programs at Réseau Environnement, I want to reiterate something that was mentioned earlier this afternoon, and that is the perception of abundance that we have, and the perception that we have that water surfaces are free. So at the outset, something that we should ask ourselves is, what is the relationship that Quebecers have with their drinking water consumption? So the first thing we realize when we look at this is that water is of paramount importance. 42% of people say they're very concerned about water consumption and use. 50% think that water is wasted a great deal in Quebec. 81% feel a sense of urgency about taking sustainable action for the environment. So that's the importance that people feel that this issue holds. But what we realize is that the behaviors don't necessarily always follow those perceptions. Because, for example, the surveys show that only 30% of people said that they are making a lot of effort to limit their water consumption. 80% of the population recognizes that they could reduce their water consumption without reducing their comfort and quality of life. And 70% of Canadians say they sometimes use the toilet instead of the garbage can. So in terms of awareness raising, I think these are some of the important issues that we need to find ways to be able to make the efforts more real to conserve water. So what we offer is a program for saving drinking water, and we have some financing from some municipalities. We have patrol units that go and watch what's going on in shopping malls, for example, and have awareness campaigns in those areas. So what are the challenges are to be part of a Quebec-wide campaign, to have access to communication tools and an awareness path and the materials that we need, and to be able to direct citizens to a comprehensive information site. So in terms of the impacts and issues, well, we know that there's nearly 100 participating municipalities reaching nearly 3 million Quebecers. We have awareness officers who travel throughout Quebec during the summer season, and they make maybe around 200 visits. On July 15, we have what's known as Dropper Day, or the day where we count every drop of water, and this is so that people know how their contributions matter in terms of saving water. For example, in one water, we save 651,000 liters of water. So the mayor of Montreal also participated in that. It was very interesting. And then in terms also of issues, is to get variable financing depending on the municipal and government budgets. So this is all part of a global vision for excellence with several stakeholders. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mathieu. So let's continue on immediately. And don't forget, for those who receive comments or questions, or if you have questions for the panelists or participants, please put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. So we'll continue with Nathalie Pierbeuf. She is Executive Director of Action Group, EWAG. She's going to talk to us today about the program entitled I Adopt a Stream. Go ahead, Natalie. Okay, thank you, Dominique, and thank you to the foundation. So I Adopt a Stream is a participative program that we adopted. So for about 20 years, people could be adopting streams near their own homes to protect their overall health and the health of the streams. So we have a lot of experience to know what people are interested in terms of their nearby waterways or streams. They want to know about quality of the water, the macro, micro inhabitants, and other elements in the water. So we have an interactive card that you can get on the website of IWAG, and the project enables people to take concrete action regarding streams near where they live. So this is for students and at all grade levels to protect the natural environment. It's also available to some Indigenous communities in Quebec. The program is carried out throughout Quebec and other provinces as well, so especially in Manitoba and New Brunswick Francophone communities. So to carry out a project like this, we had to set up a coordination bureau and that helps to train the people in the local schools and give them the scientific and teaching tools that they need that are adapted to their particular needs. Now, in terms of impacts, well, there are many. For the young people, it's the application of concepts, developing skills, becoming engaged and committed citizens, and also contributing to making the science around this subject more concrete and less abstract. And this also helps the participants to get a feeling of belonging with respect to their waterways and the desire to protect those waterways. Now this involves a few challenges doing a program like this. So it involves a certain investment. People have to get out of their comfort zone for the coordinator and the teacher as well to be able to fulfill their role. They have to spend time and of course money. So also to last over time, a project like this has to be adapted to the needs of each uh, type of pedagogy, their protocols and so on. We need to also be aware of new technologies and the new things coming up in the curricula, new environmental agents, climate change, and so on. So it's a continual investment. The other major challenge is to be able to support this network that we have put in place. And this is one of the issues and that one of the things that we want to put in place is the is more action throughout the network. So the next slide, the recommendations that I would make, well, I have two. I think it's really important to harmonize the educational efforts on the regional scale and to recognize organizations throughout the country. It's a real good job that's being done in that sense. So also there's the education program. It has as much importance as other water initiatives because it's a long-term investment. When you talk about educating people and bringing about changes in behavior, especially concerning water, that's not something you do in just 1 year. You have to spend many years to bring about this kind of behavior change. So thank you. Thank you very much, Natalie. That was an excellent presentation. Now, I would like to go on to Céline Schaldenbrand. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Please tell me what your name is. Schaldenbrand. Okay, thank you. So Céline is the coordinator of communications for the regroupement des organismes de bassin versant. It's ROBVQ in Quebec, about watershed groups. And the program is called Think Blue or Pensée Bleue. So the floor is yours, Céline. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you to the foundation for giving us this opportunity to present Think Blue. Stephanie, maybe you can change the slide. Thank you. And then go to the next one. All right, so Think Blue. This is a campaign to raise awareness and adopt good water practices in everyday life. It was launched in June 2020, and there are 3 organizations coordinating it. We are 3 panelists here today, our OBVQ that I represent, but there's also the Water Education Center, Centre d'Interprétation, that you heard from earlier with Denise Cloutier, and there was Réseau Environnement with Mathieu Lonovi, who spoke to you as well. So we are aimed at the greater public, and we're talking to Francophone Quebec publics. So we want to keep the message easy and humorous. So this is mostly done on TV with a few advertising commercial spots that we have on various TV channels, L, Max, and VRAC. This year, we went with Occupation Double for some promotional material before their show started. And then we have also some integration materials that enable us to present 3 proper practices that are shown by some of the participants in the show and also the makeup artist. So there's Corinne Cote, who is a comedian on the Nouvelle Vague, and there are also 20 influential thinkers or influencers on Facebook and Instagram. There's JC Nadeau, for example. There's Jardinier, Paresseux, and many others. So, of course, we also are present on the web, especially through the a certain display network. So for the evaluation, well, it's a little early. We just launched our campaign, but as you can see, there's some figures here that we took from a survey that was conducted among 1,000 Quebecers aged 18 to 64 last spring. And that was about knowing how well Quebecers know their waterways. So we will do the same campaign at the end of the launch and at the end of the broadcasting, and we'll see what's the difference between the first and the second survey. That will enable us to measure, to evaluate our campaign. So we also have things from the website that will enable us to get a picture of results of the quiz. We're going to have quizzes on the website. We'll be able to find out what the answers are, how well are people doing, and are people doing better as our program progresses. And we'll keep this information available on our website so people can keep up with what's going on. So then one last slide, thank you. Just for the obstacles and recommendations, as many people mentioned, this is a long process, and we have to deal with a diversified audience from age 11 to 71. You know, that makes a big difference, and we have to work toward changing attitudes. So we have to align our program with other local and regional initiatives. So when we launched it, we did it in the framework of the Water Month, which is June in Quebec. So we need to align our program with other activities, more local and regional, and make it provincial. Our Think Blue campaign should be provincial and aligned with messages that I should say are more general and that cover more local realities so that we can have a stronger impact. Thank you. Thank you very much, Céline, for this wonderful initiative. Now, our next speaker is Mr. Benoit Mercil, who is Executive Director of the Monique Fitzbach Foundation. Today, he's going to talk to us about a program that has been established by his foundation. It's called My River and Me, Mon Fleuve et Moi. The floor is yours. You need to turn on your mic, Benoit. Unmute yourself. Okay, great. So hello, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to come speak about this initiative. This initiative by the Monique Fitzbach Foundation to develop our ability to realize wealth, develop pride, and express ourselves. So the foundation wants to improve environmental awareness among young people in Quebec. And so not only in water, but in medication as well. For me, and I'm just going to change my slide. Okay, so this is a teaching kit sent out to teachers in Quebec to Quebec's primary and secondary school teachers. And the kit is made up of a number of documents. You can see an information document that says, realizing the wealth of the St. Lawrence River, and about what the fauna and flora are, and what are the uses and tourism involved, and the agriculture, also the economy, because we're in a economy of maritime transport and sustainable development. And we talk about that. Also, there are some teaching tools that are offered in another document. So these are some of the things that will help the teacher to describe the project to the students. So next slide, please. Thank you. So there is a drawing contest that will help the children to really get involved. It's been a very popular contest in the schools today, especially for studies concerning the environment. And we usually get hundreds of drawings. You can see on the top right of the screen, you can see those pictures that came were the result of this contest. Our children who sent us their vision of the environment, and we get about 100. We choose around 50, and then we make a mural, and then it's distributed so that the kids can see it as much as possible throughout Quebec, in the Quebec Aquarium and in many municipal parks. So here you can see the mural about those boats. So now what are the impacts? I said earlier we started in 2011, so we've had this 9 times, and we have a lot of success in the schools with this project. We have many children whose awareness has been raised with the drawing contest in the schools. And obviously, we're getting a great visibility in schools and among young people. So this tool enables greater knowledge, develops pride, and it's a great learning tool and a great way to defend the St. Lawrence. Now, the project, however, has had a few obstacles. Despite the fact that we're working with financing supported by a number of partners, historical partners, but the development of the project is very limited. So we would like to have a broader scope. We would like to be able to go Canada-wide and get involved in other aspects of water, like lakes and rivers. Next slide. So I just have a preamble before I get to the recommendation, and it said that young Quebecers don't necessarily realize the richness of their bodies of water. Awareness is essential. Young people can be very effective drivers of social transformation. So our recommendation for the Canada Water Agency is that it should focus on educating youth on the issue of water. It would be to the agency's advantage to rely on the presence of several organizations that are already active and recognized in the school environment. So that's my presentation, and I thank you very much. Thank you, Benoit. You can close your camera. Thank you very much. Now our next speaker is Frédéric Poitras. Frédéric is not necessarily a water expert, but he's a guy from Quebec with a social, cultural conscience who wants to do things differently. He is a co-founder of the Le Cercle restaurant in Quebec, and he's also founder of a common web, community management platform. Since 2014, he's been administrator of a Facebook page, La Mer Le Bon in Quebec. So he's invested a great deal of time in becoming a sincere ally of the First Nations, and he works for reconciliation. So the initiative for the Blanc-Bec program is something he's very proud of, and Blanc-Bec would be the greenhorn project. So he's going to talk about this program entitled The Blanc-bec Débarque. Greenhorns are arriving. So hi everyone, I'm very happy to be with you today. So with Blanc-bec, I'm very humbly trying to get my entourage on Facebook aware of the presence of our Indigenous neighbors and the fact that they were here before we were and that we don't know them sufficiently well. In fact, we don't know them at all. So I went around the 53 reserves in Quebec, and I think I am acting concretely to be able to try to live together with our neighbors. Now, this all started in November 2016. There was a news item on TV with women in Val d'Or about women undergoing systemic racism. And we're hearing a lot about that these days. And this had to do with the Sûreté de Québec. So I felt like this was something that was overwhelming us. I wanted to do something, but I felt like I couldn't do anything. And still, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something. I started up Blanc-bec Débarque, and we went up to Val d'Or to try to help out. I got 150 cards written by women in Quebec for women in Val d'Or. It was really a feminist action that us four guys did. And we took them chocolates and honey and all kinds of presents that we could take them. And so that they could know that I was not the only one that was touched by this story of racism. So we had a lot of obstacles. So the obstacles, what were they? Well, I have prejudice, I have ignorance, and I have fear, especially. I was really afraid of doing it wrong, of not going about it in the right way. You have to remember that I didn't know anybody, not a soul, not a single Indigenous person, and I never was in a reserve. I was going to give up because a lot of people were saying, you shouldn't do this. The initiative is not right. I was almost ready to not do it. But then I have a friend who's right here. He said, this is great. The cards are great, but you can't eat them. So I'm going to make a big couscous. So I went up to Val d'Or with my Tunisian friend and a huge couscous. So there's the Friends Center in Val d'Or that help people who are homeless. We made couscous for everybody. And there were people from all of the region who came in. So here, I had a lot of adventures in the 4 following years. Like I said, I was afraid they wouldn't receive me well. But in fact, I thought I was going to help them, but it turned out that they were the ones who helped me. I was the recipient of a great deal of knowledge, how to get pine trees, how to make the long tent, how to do that, use the bark to make a podanga. And I went to Shefferville with people who walked 100 kilometers through their territory. I just want to show you how far they go to transmit knowledge. These youth are very grounded. They are reappropriating their culture. These are the same people who worked on the climate march. And I was very proud to accompany Greta and to be in the front lines with her. So David Suki met with people the day before this march, and I met him. He's one of the greatest scientists that we have to listen to meet the challenges. And also the elders in the native Indigenous communities are people that we really have to listen to because they have a lot of knowledge. So not only listen to them, but ask them to speak. Sometimes let them lead the dance. That's what I would have to say. So there, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It's just the idea it's nice to listen to them, but you really have to give them the lead at some time. Can I just present my last slide, please? Oh, I don't see it. Okay, that's okay. I just want to say that We have to take the time. We have to change. We have to respect what they have to teach us. We have to change the way we do things. Sorry, I went over. No, that's not a problem at all. Thank you so much, Frederic. Thank you for speaking to us. It was very, very interesting. We have one last panelist before going online with our marketing expert, Francois. So we see Francois showing up on the screen. Francois, please close your camera, your video, and in 5 minutes you'll be on. So we're going to finish up with our last panelist, Andréane Parent.
So she is going to talk to us about protecting water with the soaking Anishinaabe Kingdom. So André-Yann Parent, it's over to you. Thank you very much, Dominique. And thank you so much to the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation and to all of you for being present. I'll talk to you a little bit about the Water Protection Reality program. So there were Vice President Gore from 2007, you'll remember there was a documentary, and so he was requested to help out with the climate change crisis. Well, they decided that his message should get out as soon and as fast as possible. So there were ambassadors from the Water Protection Reality, and just before the movie came out, well, it was at his barn in Nashville. He talked about science and solutions to climate change in an informative and efficient way that was inspiring as well. After his presentation, well, everyone went back to their communities, inspired and informed. Years later, more than 40 trainings have been organized around the world. 25,000 people aged 12 to 27 years old participated in these, representing over 100 countries. And now we have branches in 10 countries, including Canada. The strength of this project, Water Protection Realities, is its pool of dedicated and qualified volunteers. We organize about 4 training sessions per year throughout the world, which means that we've got new waves of activists who are joining us regularly. Among them, over 1,300 ambassadors are from Canada, and people from all backgrounds who were trained personally by Mr. Gore, climate experts and communications experts. They decided to be part of this fight for climate change, and they all work currently to move climate change solutions forward. Yesterday, there was a marathon of training across the world. It was called 24 Hours of Reality. The ambassadors commit to taking at least 10 leadership measures. Many of them commit to protecting water in their regions, and our work, and especially mine, is to support their initiatives and contribute to the fight against climate change in Canada. Among our ambassadors, I would like to highlight the commitment of 2 of them for protecting water. There's Saking Anishinaabe King, which is often known as Ontario. So it's an Anishinaabe woman, a water walker, who walked across the Niagara Escarpment, and she carries out spiritual ceremonies to honor water. Natasha founded an organization to fight climate change and protect waters on her traditional territory, especially the quality of water and the quality of the environment for a whitefish species that her community honors by offering tobacco to it. Water is life. You just have to look around you. Take the time to do so. Then people will be more careful. We are not above other species. We're all connected. Without water, life stops completely. Take the time to observe the water in your region and realize how much it has changed. Here, we can't drink the water anymore in the Niagara Falls region because of industry. A few kilometers further, when we get close to Saugeen, You can drink the water. Future generations will need water, and we need to think about those future generations. We have a responsibility towards them. Each nation needs to think of the future generations. It's very clear and simple. With water, animate and inanimate creatures suffer. Sometimes water even kills species. So let's do something about it. You need to go out and breathe the air. Look around you. Find something alive. Concentrate on it. Look what spiders do. Put your phone down and see what others do. Find out what gets you excited. When you walk out, when you go for a walk, touch the ground. We need water and we need to protect it. On behalf of Charlie and Natasha, we would like the Canada Water Agency to support all of these things. And beyond a user relationship with water, we would like to take our responsibility seriously in protecting that water. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, André-Yann. Very interesting initiative once again. So we just saw 8 initiatives, and the challenges are huge when wanting to raise awareness among Canadians, and you have all been very creative. So we're going to try in the next 15 to 20 minutes to see how we can make sense out of raising awareness. So now I am going to be with François de Gaspé Beaubien. He's also the president of the board of directors of Aqua Forum. He has a degree from Harvard, and he also led the largest shopping store in Canada, the TV Guide and the Elle magazine. And they then sold in 2000. Him and his brother also supervised the expansion of their radio division. And as a co-CEO, it became the largest radio broadcaster in Canada, Telemedia. And it was sold in 2002. In 2003, François acquired Zoom Media, an indoor advertising company, and since becoming CEO, the company has experienced exceptional growth, and I'm sure he's joining us to tell me that COVID has hurt him a little bit, but everybody's in the same boat. So exceptional growth, digitally entertaining and educating over 35 million people each month in Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom. So I will ask François about the keys to success of an awareness campaign and how to reach out to citizens on a large scale. So François, are you ready? Yes, I am ready. Thank you, Dominique. Okay, so I'll go with my first question here. As I just described, you have had a career in communications and you studied communications, and over your entire life, you've always tried to change consumers' behaviors. Now, how do we trigger change? How do we ignite the spark that leads citizens to take action and to get involved? Thank you, Dominique. I also sit on the World Association of Digital Screens, and we were at 1,500 on my live stream a few moments ago, and we were talking about the fact that most citizens receive about 20,000, maybe even 30,000 ads that they see each day. So when you think about all of that, social media and such, it's very difficult to stand out. Unfortunately, I couldn't listen to everyone who spoke today, but as you know, I'm very passionate about water and its challenges. And we've got such a great cause that we want to protect. And unfortunately, the challenge is standing out among all the others. People receive so many messages, but how could we stand out? And this reminds me of what my father did when he set up Participation. At the time, Canadians had a challenge when it came to physical fitness. My father took simple images. You have to simplify. You have to be very clear. Very simple images. One was it was a Swedish man, 85 years old, compared to a Canadian, 35 years old. And the Swedish man of 85 years was 5 times in better shape than 35-year-old Canadian. That's pretty impressive. We've made progress since, but it showed, it made a point. So we really need to simplify what we're trying to do. And when I look at everything we're doing, if it's the Think Blue initiative or I Adopt a River, or the initiatives around drinking water, these are all causes that are so important. And each speaker today is an expert in that area, but how can we make it simple so that Quebecers and Canadians can understand the challenge very simply? The second thing is that we need to have a huge impact. What my father did was he brought together the other media um, company owners and he really hammered home this simple matter. And then he insisted on people having to go for walks and take care of their bodies, get into better shape. So a simple message, one, and two, go for the biggest impact. And unfortunately, today, we have significant data, but we're not doing either of those things. So that's the summary that I'd give you, Dominique. We need to simplify our message, so that means we need to get coordinated between all of us and then agree on the simple message. Then we can go a little deeper. We don't just stay at the simplified level, but your children in 7th grade have to be able to understand the message very easily. We don't want people to have to be, have a PhD to understand. Then once we get people interested, then you can give them more information, but you keep the initial message simple so that everybody can grasp it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the biggest impact. We need to get media impact. Excellent. Thank you, Francois, for that answer. I've got another question for you. I know that you weren't there when the presentations were taking place, but I know you and I know you've done your homework and I know you've read up on each of the initiatives that were presented today. You're very much aware of what people presented today. I know you saw that there's no lack of creativity or no lack of good ideas for programs, nor is there lack of commitment of the many organizations in the field. These people work very hard with very little means, and they try really hard to raise awareness among people, either in their community or within their environment. In your opinion, because despite all of these efforts, we must admit that Canadians still seem extremely complacent when it comes to our waterways and rivers. How can you explain that so much effort can produce so few results around awareness? Some people talk about water meters. Some people say there's not enough money for communications. What advice would you give these people who are working so hard and who would like to see more results? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank them. They're not just passionate about this, they have taken to heart a cause that is necessary and important for the future of all Canadians. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for doing what you do. And second of all, I have to apologize because I was ignorant. When my children and nieces and nephews came to see me to get involved in the question of water, I was like all other Canadians. I was completely unaware of the reality. I was unaware that we had challenges with road salt and wastewater treatment and drinking water and climate change. Well, climate change I knew a little bit about, but the media, and I consider myself as being part of that, did not give enough airtime to the messages and initiatives that you do. So that's the first thing. I apologize, but I'll make up for it. What we need to do is work together. And it's not for any lack of creativity or commitment. We asked you to stand out and make a difference with a canoe, but no paddle. It was not a fair race. And the Americans would say it's not fair. I know I'm not supposed to speak in English, but it's not fair. And what we want to do as a family is help you with that, but the means aren't there. So each person brings to the table knowledge, but think about it. We're talking about a number of subjects that are all important, and the details are important, but we're not reaching the critical mass of Canadians. But I wasn't aware of those challenges. And there's and all of the CEOs of companies should be aware of what's happening. And all the Canadians I talk to and ask questions of say, no, we're a blue nation. We've got fresh water, which is very pure. And when I talk to them about the fact that the Hudson is more pure than the Ottawa River, they say it's impossible. So you are doing the right thing. But unfortunately, you don't have the means to fully see it to its end. So we're too dispersed. We need to be more united. We need to have one or a few very simple messages to get to the critical mass. And then we would seek out the media time we need to dig down a little deeper to raise awareness among Canadians. And how, if overnight, Francois, I assure you, don't worry, I promise I won't give you this mandate, but if tomorrow we told you that we had the means, okay, what would we start by? What would you recommend to all of the people here? How would we tackle this in terms of marketing and communications? I'll go back to my father, who inspired me a lot in life. And I'll tell you what he did with Participation. You have to reach out to Canadians, and it's not today. We have to take responsibility, and I don't want to point fingers at anyone because everyone who participated today is part of the solution. You are the solution, so we need to listen to you, just like the message we heard, but unfortunately you don't have the airtime. So to answer your question, we would need to bring together what everybody here is doing, and we'd have to go get the key points, we have those, and then simplify. And that's what an agency does. I apologize to talk like this, but I am a marketing man. Our water challenge is a product. And we have to make this product accessible to Canadians so that they can understand what we're trying to get across to them. And today, Canadians and Quebecers don't understand that we have a freshwater crisis. They don't know. And so we have to simplify things. And I use images to do so. I was also very aware of what Steve Jobs did with Apple, and he simplified images. You don't want just a nice image, you want one that communicates what the advantages of the product. We want to do the same thing with our freshwater challenges. We want Canadians and Quebecers to understand and say, oh my gosh, there's a challenge and there are solutions to that challenge. We don't want to just be alarmist. Francois, and I'm addressing all of the panelists and participants here now. If you have any questions, specific questions for Francois or the panelists, please use the Q&A, which you'll see in your toolbar at the bottom of the screen. And at the end of my interview with Francois, I'll be able to ask some questions of the people that you want to get answers from. Francois, I very much understood what you explained to us. A simple message. We need a simple message. You know, like me, that water is complicated. Water-related problems are complex. There are many of them. They're different. And we live in a country with 2 official languages. The challenge is phenomenal. So we talk about simplifying the message, and I'm sure that the presenters today would say, well, listen, Francois, I'd love to have a little apple like the picture of an apple like the company Apple has, but how am I going to simplify my message? And I remember recently we were talking and you said, let's first grab their attention and then we'll inform them. of the initiatives that are being conducted by all these people. Can you explain to us how you would see that happening? How could we simplify that message while taking into account the complexity of the situation? It's not so much a huge challenge, but a very present one. We need to go get the broader public. Everybody here on this call here today would be happy if we were able to say we're going to reach out to 10 million Canadians. That's about a third of our population. Let's say 10 million Canadians. We're going to go get them. We're going to go put them in an environment where they'll be captive. Over 3 months, we're going to have 6 minutes with them in total. Would you be happy with a solution like that? Because what I'd like to do is to get that 10 million people. Of course, eventually I'd like to get all 33 million, but let's start with 10 million. And I think we need to create a system in several steps. First, our simple message. Then we would need to create a website of excellence. It would start very simply, and then quickly you can go down and get more details. And this website that we should create, that I hope to create, will deal with sewage, road salt, ecological integrity, climate change, and also the campaign, My River and I, or Think Blue. Everything would be there. And even if you want to keep going down this website, you can visit the expert websites, because these experts have focused on the St. Lawrence Challenge, for example, for their entire lives. So if you want to, you can go to the website. But at least that way we would go get the 10 million up here, and then we let them work their way down. And the important thing, friends, is that I think we need to get citizens to contribute in with what they do, with the measures they take, and with their wallets. The way to do more with all the challenges you have presented today, well, this has to do with their actions. They buy eco-friendly things, for example. Producers, business people react, and then politicians do too. The only way we're going to make some real change is when we become a larger group, 200 to 300 to 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on million. Thank you. That's excellent, Francois. I have one last question for you before we move on to the question and answer period. As you know, the Canada Water Agency is on the government's platform now, and in the last speech from the throne, it was pretty much confirmed that the Canada Water Agency was going to come to be. In terms of raising awareness of Canadians around water issues, what would be your recommendation in terms, as a marketing expert, in terms of what the role of this new agency should be? Well, Dominique, what I would say is two things. Two things that I will then explain further: funding and coordination. And then beside coordination, value added. Everyone who's involved, everyone who's on this call and who has worked so hard and with so much passion, with so few means, I mean, it's practically with nothing. We need to give them resources. So funding, that's the first one. Second, we've got piecemeal initiatives. We can't keep operating in silos. If we keep operating in silos, we're always going to be limited to 1,000 people, a couple thousand people. I apologize for the analogy, but we're talking drops of water here, very small numbers. So we need to work together. So funding and then coordination, we need to be together so we're no longer fragmented. And I would add that I'd like to see an expert committee on marketing focused on water so that they can come up with uh, the funding strategies, the marketing strategies, so that we can all work together with the government and we can work for our generation and future generations to protect freshwater in Canada. Excellent recommendation, François. We've got questions that are coming in. We've got some very good ones here. Most of them are for you, François, since you're an expert in marketing. One person asks this question. In your opinion, what is the most lucrative message for us to get out there? Should we focus on the economic consequences or environmental consequences of poor water management? That's a very good question. There's a big uh, there's a there's a danger here in asking a marketing expert a question about a topic that he's not an expert in, but I'm starting to get good. But Dominique knows me well, and I always have strong opinions. If I may, I'd like to go back to this topic of coordination of experts in marketing, me, and the experts in water who are here around the table. This is dangerous what I'm going to do because I prefer to do surveys first, go see Canadians, talk to them, listen to their needs, and then come back to the table based on those statistics. I'm a bit of a geek in that respect. I like to get their impressions, and our feelings are not the same as data. But anyway, that being said, I would say that the environmental side of things resonates a lot with young people. The economic argument is important for business people and for the government and for businesses and so on. But I would go more towards environment and protecting the environment for future generations. I'd start with that. But once again, that is just a hypothesis that I'd like to test, but I do feel confident enough in advancing it. Excellent, thank you. François, you talked about a website and a campaign based on a simple message. A few people asked a question, how much would that cost? This is me asking the question to put the next question into more context. Before you, our speakers talked about programs with limited budgets. For the most part, the budgets were pretty small. So when you talk about a website and a national campaign, in terms of number and what scale should we be thinking about? Hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions dollars? How should we think about that? Well, it depends what the government will do, of course, but what I'd like the government to do to support us, well, it would be multiplying by 10. I'll answer the question. I think we should get a $100 million budget in terms of advertising time to reach Canadians. That's a huge number. But I think we could get it with a little bit of capital, 1 million. But I would volunteer to go see my other media co-owners to get media airtime for a lower price or even for free. As you know, Dominique, I reach a lot of Canadians through Zoom, if it could open again. And so I would offer time for this. So I said 100 million, but for the most part, these would be contributions, free contributions for the website. Well, I've got some ideas, as you know, but we've got to think, you know, you realize that when you go on a website, you can tell when it's quality or not. So I'd like to have high quality because, you know, it's not just raising awareness, it's also asking citizens to contribute and get engaged. So $200,000 to start for an exceptional website. And I'm willing to contribute my time and money to help in that initiative, but it would be good for the government to join in as well. And it's a pretty complex initiative, as you all know, but to bring it back, we start with a simple message and then break it down into more details. Well, listen, François, the time is already up. This goes very quickly. It was very interesting. Thank you so much for your participation. There are other questions here in the Q&A, but I'll make sure that they get passed on to you. So it's already over. I hope that this day spent together has given you a better understanding of the situation surrounding the creation of the Canada Water Agency and has allowed you to identify the most important messages to convey to the future leaders of Canada, of CEA. I would like to warmly thank all our panelists and all the participants of this webinar. As I said this morning, this wouldn't have been possible without the support of the Gaspé Beaubien Foundation and the support of Aqua Forum and Global Water Future. I would also like to thank the eco-management firm that eco-gestion rather, that brilliantly coordinated this event, and all the work that went into putting together the content for these two webinars. Denise Cloutier, Benoît Mercier, Céline Charles-Dambran, Frédéric Poitras, Andréane Parent, Nathalie Piedboeuf, entre autres, among others. So we will prepare a summary of all of this and the comments and the questions from the Q&A, and we will share it with you. We'll come up with a report, and I invite you to put your comments on Place Speak, which is the platform for citizens to contribute their comments on the future Canada Water Agency. So I'd like to thank you wholeheartedly. Over 250 people participated today in these two webinars. These were the only ones offered in French, and I think it went well. And I hope that we have created that we have a bridge with our Anglophone partners, and I hope that the interpreters were able to keep up with us. So I acknowledge our friends and colleagues from other provinces, and that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, and goodbye.